Ruben's the one that's been giving away the Open Voip Alliance stickers because, there you go, Exhibit A from Jamie, because he's from the Open Voip Alliance. And we've just asked him to just tell us about that over a couple of minutes before we hear from Ule and Iñaki.
Yeah, so thanks for having me on stage. I came here at JanusCon because I want to start up the Open Voip Alliance, and I had no idea when I came here that there are so many people going to be interested in this. The idea behind the Open Voip Alliance is that within the Voip community there's so many cool projects like Homer, like OpenSIPs, like Janus, that are all doing their own thing and they're doing it really well. But it's sometimes difficult to come up with solutions together to difficult problems within the Voip community. And I think it would be awesome to have a place centrally where we could all come together to talk about these issues, to organize events, to help out the community for new people that are coming in, have tutorials on how to use these different things, to navigate the maze of all the projects that we have and all the cool people that are within our community. And I think being here these 3 days has kind of proved to me that is what we need, because I came here and I just talked to David, and that got the ball rolling, and now I'm standing here. I took 200 stickers with me, half of them are gone. So I would just like to encourage everybody to look at our website, which is openvoipalliance.org. We have some kind of manifesto, mission statement where we say why are we doing this, and it's really from like the bottom of our heart. We want to create a better Voip community. We have a forum as well, discourse.openvoipalliance.org. So check that out, I would say. If you have any topics that you want to discuss, put it up there, and let's try and see if we can get the discussion going. I mean, the discussions that I've been witnessing so far about federation, for example, have some very interesting problems that I think a lot of you would be interested in joining in. So let's continue the discussion there, I would say. So thanks for having me.
Great. Thank you very much, Ruben. Top class. And Ruben has also volunteered the Open Voip Alliance website to host the conclusions of these discussions and make it available to everybody, so discussions can continue between events, which is very good. Okay, so what we'll do is we'll hand over to Ule, and shall we use the format where you go for your few minutes, Ule, and then Iñaki goes, and then we have a little chat afterwards, because if we start countering the different things in the middle of it, it could take a very long time, couldn't it? So Ule, if you'd like to shoot first.
Iñaki is wrong in all he says, and you can't trust him with anything. That's the start of this discussion. Well, we had a very open discussion, and I tried to avoid the protocol discussion and say, well, let's focus on the requirements if we want to do any federation, and try to find out what went wrong with SIP. Maybe it was too early, or XMPP for that matter, why it doesn't work. I shut down my XMPP server because it was just filled with Russian spam, which made me really, really sad. But one issue is finding each other. We need a global namespace, a distributed delegated namespace, and what's more easy than the name at domain stuff we're all using for many different things. We need a missing piece is the ability to trust each other, which can be divided in trust between domains and trust between users. Setting up secure, truly secure end-to-end user sessions, something that isn't sold for SIP, isn't sold for Jabber, isn't sold for many protocols, but is sold in some way, but not interoperable way in Matrix, Signal, and many others. We need interoperability, of course. That doesn't require all platforms to change, but maybe require everyone to have some sort of gateway to this, whatever it is, the Carl Gustav protocol. I think we came to the conclusion that connecting this type of identity, email address, to your social security number, your DNA, and your parents in 6 generation back was out of scope. That's another layer of identity. One should be able to have multiple identities, multiple roles per person, and maybe not be traceable back to the legal identity. We discuss adoption a bit. Everything takes time. I mean, when I started SIP, working with SIP, we believed that we will take over the world in a few years and kill all the PSTN companies. I won't say how far away that was, but we still have PSTN companies around. Their business models are falling apart, but they're still around. So things take time, but at least we need some movement here. We have plenty of protocols. Do we really need to invent a new one, or do we need to pick a few of them and add the missing pieces that we see that we haven't defined yet? I don't know, but that's our discussion.
Okay, thank you very much, Ali.
Okay. I don't need so much.
Impossible man!
Well, we tried to discuss this. Actually, we ended talking about global identity, which is not completely related to federation or not. I mean, using WhatsApp, which obviously is not federated, I can receive a message from a guy who I don't know. I can see his phone number, but that tells me absolutely nothing about who he is and how he knows me and how he's contacting me. So beyond that, I think that we all agree in that federation at the end means that all the application or vendors joining that federated land need to create the same set of requirements and features into their applications. And if we go that way, we will probably replicate the PSTN over a different set of protocols or layers, but at the end, the very same. So finally, those applications and those features will be not enough, and other competitors will start creating not federated applications that provide more feature, more emojis, more whichever, and people will start using them as they are already using, because that is something that is already happening from many years ago. So, I mean, federation won't work because people don't want, that doesn't need that, and it will be always worse than new application that may happen in the future without constraints. Okay, and other than that, we also think that we are already federated. We are already federated. How? By Google. We are federated by Google. I mean, if I need to contact someone, I will look for it in Google. Maybe it's a hotel, a person, a friend, or friend, whoever. And I will get information to reach this person or this hotel or whichever. And maybe I get a Twitter account, maybe I get a URL to click and see what happened. Maybe it's a chat, maybe it's a WebRTC application that I automatically install without ever knowing it into my desktop or browser or whichever, and I can start a multimedia session. Well, it's not federation like we were thinking about, but what is federation at the end? It's just using the same set of protocols to communicate between islands, or is just the capability to reach others, given that you have the contact address of him. You don't need to use the same application or an application that mimics the same features that the other one. Maybe you can get the application in runtime. So basically, especially in WebRTC, we believe that federation as a replacement for the PSTN, which is the only federate solution that still exists among the email, of course, it doesn't make sense. It is not going to work, and if someone try to do it, it will probably create just another competitor.
Interesting stuff. Anybody want to make any points or ask any questions of either Ule or Iñaki? Please identify the person ahead of the question.
Hi, it's Iñaki.
How do we know that?
I've got his email here. I kind of agree with what you're saying, to be fair. Do you think that Federation will stifle innovation?
It does.
Mm.
I mean, it already does. Email is probably nobody could invent the email nowadays. In fact, Google already tried to replace email, and there are a lot of applications trying to replace email for a more narrow scope within organization or companies with more features and things that the email cannot provide. And there is WhatsApp, there is Skype, there is a lot of competitors doing things that innovate over the PSTN. So obviously that is something that is already happening. It's impossible to stop that, and it's not possible that a constrained set of features and requirements will stay for years with people happy, with people using it really happy, because at the end competitors will appear providing more features and people will move. That how it's already happening. I mean.
Thank you, Iñaki. Okay, Daniel. Couple of big guns.
Okay, so a little bit more like a remark, because actually what I have seen so far, and not at this event, but in general, the problem was that everyone associated PSTN as a single thing. But actually it's a federated infrastructure with a Voip app. It was just embedded. So what I see now is like you say, okay, I can run my own app and find you somehow like a browser, but you still need this federated infrastructure. It's just decoupled from the Voip app, which now it's a standalone. You see it; it's an icon on your phone. It's not just like the previous was buttons on your keys on the infrastructure. But on the other hand, you still need federation at some layer. If without federation, you can't do anything. We cannot travel from here to Spain if we don't have federated streets, right? So infrastructure to some layer, and is not killing innovation. Innovation will kill if would be some constraints on using this infrastructure. Like it was a lot of PSTN was not actually dying because of lack of innovation. It was dying because they couldn't adjust fast enough, and they were having enough money not to care about the others, in the way of they were not looking at the new devices, they were not looking at the market, they were just sleeping on their money milking machine at that time.
Okay, just a very fast question.
Thank you, Daniel.
About a specific question you said. I didn't mean that federation will kill innovation. What I mean is that it will kill absolutely nothing, because there is nothing to kill, because I mean federation will have to compete with other competitors, which will be able to innovate much more than any federated solution in time. So, well, federation will just kill those players joining that federation solution, but not the others. So innovation will still remain, but not in the federation part, in the others.
Thanks, Iñaki.
Well, to rebuke Iñaki, he wouldn't find me on WhatsApp unless we had a phone number in an address book. WhatsApp builds on that global namespace. And if Iñaki didn't have that, he would have to Google for Ole Johansson, Sweden. He would come up with a few thousand persons, and the top hit would be a very crazy professor at the Karolinska University, which I probably got a lot of requests from my friends, and I got a few requests on LinkedIn from his friends. LinkedIn is an interesting example because it doesn't build on phone numbers. It builds a web of trust. Have you thought of that? You find someone by name and company, and you look at them and say, oh, they know Saul and Iñaki, so that's the guy I'm looking for. It's a web of trust and a very interesting concept that possibly can inspire something. But using web browsers to find persons and call them would be very, very bad for the nurse, Lorenzo, at the hospital here in Napoli. When an old dad comes in and nurse Lorenzo wants to find a way to contact everyone in his really, really big Italian family, has to Google everyone, come to a different user interface for everyone he thinks he finds. It'll take hours and daddy will die. So I don't think finding people by Google is a way forward when we have no PSTN phone numbers. Said Nurse Lorenzo down there.
A quick question. That is does federation imply federated governance of that federation, or is it more likely to be in a central place?
It depends on your country probably leave the federation before they join, so I'm not sure. There has to be some very lax rules, but I don't think there'll be any governance. I think the rules will be stipulated into the certificate issuance for somehow.
An interesting point, because in America, the federation came about by the individual states asking to join the union, whereas in Europe it came about by the European Union telling the individual states they had to join, sort of bottom up versus top down kind of thing. Anyway, that's a side point. Okay, any other points to raise with Iñaki? Yes. Oh.
So this is one for Ole, of course. So one of my main concerns.
First, which side are you on, really?
I'm in between sides. I'll take bribes. So one of my main concerns when it comes to a world of federation is how can we be sure about the security of our communications if we don't know if all the servers in the path have been patched. So you have your own server. I've got mine. I patched mine, of course, but you didn't. I know. So how?
I'm running Asterisk 1.2 still. Asterisk Golden Edition. Right. Yeah. Well, end-to-end security, well, Signal, Matrix, and other people have really disclosed a lot of interesting crypto things for doing end-to-end security. We need to consider whether we really need a strong part where everyone has an ID card with an embedded governmental SSL certificate. I don't believe that. But we need to find end-to-end security so we can actually traverse all the intermediaries for doing this.
Be lots of metadata.
But the question here is, you and I may want end-to-end security, but I know there are a lot of enterprises out there that think that's a threat to the corporate identity. They need to find out ways to listen in. Even the Swedish parliament have a TLS proxy, so the parliament members can't really access their bank without someone from the IT department listening into their bank accounts and transactions, which I think is fundamentally wrong. But yeah, we need to handle end-to-end security. But that's a protocol thing. I think the main thing with federation is finding each other, setting up the session, trusting the session, and possibly a UI, a shared sort of UI for Nurse Lorenzo over there.
Don't you think that in that business card of yours, the next thing that would show up would be just Advina.net? And I go there and I find a way to communicate with you of this decade.
I don't believe that. I know Aswat believe going to the website. But
got something from Razvan now.
What I was going to say is that it's not only about security, but also about correctness, because we all know that SIP can be read in different ways and implemented in different ways. So what we really need is something that was on the table earlier, a way to use the protocols that can be proved they are implemented right. Otherwise, even though you're not malicious, you might go wrong with some parts of this federated engine.
Any comments on that at all?
Well, I love to play protocol police. That's kind of fun. Giovanni had a lot of errors, or someone else. I'm sorry for he left. I have to apologize anyway. I've been keeping my mouth shut for far too long during this conference, so I had to attack him. Anyway, I think if the main goal with the protocol is finding each other and then setting up a trusted relationship, do we really have to care about what happens in the intermediaries? If we come to a point where we trust communication is secure, then I don't know. Yeah.
And any final thoughts here? We're kind of wrapping up a little bit, but we've got time for a couple more comments.
So what do you do when you have a federated system that's large enough that it becomes a public utility? And at some point, some government somewhere says, no, we need to have lawful intercept, etc., etc. Do you take out that country out of the federation? What if other countries say? I mean, the system you're proposing is a unified system, while we have islands, and islands can be small enough to be ignored. Example is, I don't know, Telegram is defying Russia. We can move tomorrow somewhere else and so on, because they're small enough. If you're big enough, it's harder.
I'm looking for something that connects the islands. I don't think we need to kill the islands. I just want to be able to select my own island and not be forced by Lorenzo or Saul Iñaki to pick the island that they happen to be on. Governments will always try to regulate stuff, and their ability to do that is really diminishing as time moves forward. They will try really hard, and Lorenzo shakes his head.
But what's the difference between having two connected islands and sharing an island, if the whole point is to have functionality that's the same?
I wouldn't say that the whole point is have the same functionality. I say that my point is to have a base level of communication so we can reach each other and set up sessions. It might very well be that you have an island that is 10 times better than have four-dimensional communication. It's like WebRTC. If we can't agree on Opus and the sexiest video codec there is, we always have G711 ISDN as a base level, because that's a base requirement.
Okay, base requirement is fine, but the argument here is issues mostly with security. That was somehow one of the main points. And if you have a federated system and one island is compromised, all communication to that island is compromised. So one conclusion I can have is if the whole thing is big enough, it cannot be secure because of this reason. And the other argument is a technical reason that it's hard to make it secure. But this one basically says that it can't be for, well, political reasons.
I think we're succeeding fairly well in securing the web. When I started talking about all websites needs TLS and HTTPS 5 years ago, people said it couldn't be done because of this and this and this and this. What we now see, thanks to the web browsers, is that yes, it can be done. Absolutely. That was one thing that drove it, and it was the whole thing with Let's Encrypt was started in the IETF. We realized that we need to take the cost down to zero, and we need to automate TLS in order for it to happen. But we made it happen. Let's Encrypt is fantastic, and others are following.
Thanks, Hilda. Let's get some final thoughts from Iñaki.
Okay, so you have listened to Ole. He said, if we could agree on a set of requirements and features and multimedia capabilities like audio and video codecs, we are done. It's like, if we can agree now on that, we are done. For how long? For 2 years, 3 years, 10 years? Because in the past we already agreed on a set of features for the telephony system, which was basically a very poor audio quality and nothing else. And today we have the very same. I mean, by using the PSTN, I can just have very poor audio quality. Nothing has really changed. Maybe in operators they use RIP or whichever. But for me, as a user, I have the same user experience like, maybe, I don't know, 20 years ago. So it's obvious that such a system based on federation and based on rules and constraints and specification to accomplish with doesn't evolve as faster as people expect and user expects. So people will move to any other thing.
Okay, thank you. Just got another contribution.
I apologize. I lost part of the discussion. I was caught in a call. So if I am out of scope, just disregard my comment. But just wanted to, no, really, I wanted to provide a minor contribution to the discussion, possibly. I had some chat with Ole last day. In terms of, if you are just thinking of securing WebRTC islands, this might be not necessarily in scope. But if you are thinking more in general, of things that are related to how you can make group-based communication more secure. There are, I think many of you are aware of that, there are efforts in the ITF associated with that. There is the messaging layer security working group that is working exactly on this, at least for the messaging part. And the people involved are from Facebook, Google, Twitter, and the like. And they're working basically on means for sharing crypto information among group members in a way that then has some properties like linkability, traceability, and the like. One more thing that comes to my mind, because it's part of some researches that I'm carrying out at the university, is related to ring signatures, things like that. So you have a group that shares information, basically RS without A stuff, and you can sign things with your private key, with the public keys of the other members of the group, and this gives nice properties to the things that you are sharing. And you need identity providers there, obviously, but you might think of solutions where many different technologies come into play, because the federation might then be orchestrated in a way that is itself distributed and might even leverage some of the latest fashion buzzwords in terms of trust. Like, for example, forgive me for speaking this word, like the blockchain, for example. Yeah. I'm not in love with that, but I do believe that part is something that might prove useful in terms of enabling let's say, a distributed orchestration layer on top of a group-based, shared, secured communication. I mean, it's a matter of basically research nowadays, but I see as a possible future for these things something that might leverage a couple of these items, but I'm not even sure myself, but just wanted to share with you my thoughts.
Thank you very much. Now, Saul, you put your hand up. Is it a short one? Okay. That's because we're bang on time here.
First of all, I want to thank him for have the same accent that I do. Thank you so much. Second, tying, for example, the quality of a phone call or the quality of the entire of the user experience of the phone call to a federated system is really not probably the way to go, because yes, telephone systems, phone numbers of PSTN are federated, but the way that the distribution in the service provider is not. So you can have people using a new technology, and you can have people using the old analog systems. So it's really not a federation system, and in the end, it should go that way.
Well,
any last comments?
A last comment to Iñaki. We were able to define, with a lot of pain and a lot of time and tons of RFCs, something called WebRTC, a media layer, a session layer without signaling. Why do you assume that the signaling layer to find each other and manage sessions should mandate a specific session? They can involve parallel. Definitely.
Okay, anything last from you, Iñaki? Or
no.
Okay.
Just that maybe that no matter the audio quality, that I understand that it depends on the provider you are connected to and how it interconnects with the other, but I still have no video in my phone.
Okay. Thank you, Iñaki. Let's say a big thank you to Ole and Iñaki for being prepared to take those roles. And actually, I think you should say a big thank you to yourselves for going the extra mile and staying till this late. You know, we realise people do have flights to go to, but you guys have gone the extra mile. You're still here at 6 o'clock on the last day. And of course, we have lots of thank yous to give. And so before I hand the mic to anybody else, I would like to say massive, massive thanks to Lorenzo and his team and to QXIP and their team. I think they really pulled off the triple beam, great content, great organisation and great venue right next to the sea. Brilliant, excellent. Good. Another round of applause for those people. Thank you very much.
Thanks, David. So now this closes Voip on the beach as well. I think this first experiment with this new event was really interesting. Oh, of course.
One thing to say, and that is the discussions on either side were captured by Ruben and Giacomo, and so they will be on the Open VoIP Alliance website for continuous discussion afterwards.
Yeah, and that's important because we never wanted this to be a self-contained event or something that was supposed to end here. We really wanted this to be something that could sparkle some discussion, and I think it managed to do exactly that. I didn't really anticipate this kind of very interesting interaction from two different perspectives on such an important topic. And with so many things to discuss, we had a huge list over there. I really see a need for such an event to happen again in the future, and I'm grateful for Ruben to actually have this Open VoIP Alliance forum where we can keep on discussing all that. So let's say this finally closes also the VoIP on the Beach event. I thank you again on behalf of both the Miteco and the QXIP team for joining us here. I hope you had a good time. I had a great time. I'm going to sleep for a couple of days straight, but I had a great time. So thanks again for coming here, and meeting adjourned, as we can say.